Hey everyone, David Chen here. I hope everyone out there is having a safe and healthy holiday season. It's been a bit of a challenge here in the Chen household. I've been dealing with some health issues. If you want to hear more about that, you can follow me on my other social media channels. But I didn't want that to stop me from bringing you some rambling, incoherent thoughts about Wonder Woman 1984. Rambling and incoherent is a great way to describe my thoughts on this movie because I think it's also a decent way of describing this movie itself, which I thought was a bit of an overstuffed mess. Wonder Woman 1984 takes place many decades after the first film in 1984. You got Gal Gadot returning as Diana Prince, and she also is Wonder Woman on the side. But when she's not fighting crime, she's just trying to get by at her day job and keeping a low profile. Meanwhile, one of Diana Prince's new coworkers, Miss Minerva, played by Kristen Wiig, is really in awe of Diana Prince and her beauty and her skills, and maybe wants a little bit too much of it for herself. Meanwhile, you got Pedro Pascal playing Max Lord, who is just trying to make a name for himself. I mean, sure, he's just a TV con man trying to harness people's inner desires for his own gain, but I'm sure it's not commenting on anything contemporary. It's probably just a coincidence. Let's start by talking about a few things about Wonder Woman that I really enjoyed. First of all, you may have seen from the trailer that Chris Pine returns as the love of Diana Prince's life, Steve. The way in which he returns is kind of weird. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But suffice to say, he's back in this movie, and I really like these two actors in these two roles. I think they have great chemistry with each other, and even though neither of them has a particularly good character arc in this film, it's just a joy to see them hanging out together, doing things, solving crimes, fighting baddies. I'm a fan of what they do, and so to that extent, I enjoyed watching these two characters back together again. Another thing I like about Wonder Woman 1984 is it understands that we go to superhero films to be awed, to stand in wonder, as it were. And it leaves multiple moments for you to experience that wonder. There's a scene in the trailer, I think you see, where Diana and Steve are flying through some fireworks in the air, and it's a beautiful moment. You know, it reminded me of like that scene in How to Train Your Dragon when they first go up in the dragon and they're touching the clouds, and it's just like, the moment is not, it doesn't even really make much sense in the realm of the plot. It's just like, it's there because it's nice to have people experience wonder and to witness wonder through their eyes. And that's something I think we lose in many of our modern day superhero films. And it's nice that this movie was able to pause for a few moments throughout the film on those kinds of things. And that's about it. Okay, let's talk about what I didn't like about this film. Before I do that, a couple things to warn you about. Number one, there are going to be some spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, probably tune out. And number two, I'm going to take Wonder Woman 1984 seriously. And what I mean by that is I'm going to try to engage with the ideas that it's putting out. And if you liked the movie, or if you think this is a turn off your brain and just enjoy it kind of thing, hey, this YouTube video you're watching right now of me speaking is not for you, and that's cool. Go out, make your own YouTube video, go watch another YouTube video that really liked the movie, but this video is not going to be for you, and you're not going to have a good time if you watch it, so just stop, really, please. Okay, let's talk about the movie. A few things I didn't like about it. Number one, Diana and Steve basically like choose to violate this dude that Steve's body is. I mean, they kind of ask the question like, hey, how did Steve's mind get into this guy's body? But like, that's it. They don't really solve that puzzle. They just kind of like, yep, this is fine. I'm fine with this. So they basically just mind erase / soul displace this guy, body snatched this guy with no explanation. And for most of the film, they're just cool with it. It's just fine. And kind of a bummer. I guess I feel like I expect a little bit more from my superheroes. That it, like, you know, if your boyfriend mind displaced some random innocent dude, you might try to investigate. But hey, that's just me. Second thing I didn't like about Wonder Woman 1984 is, I mean, overall the movie is quite plodding and listless. This movie is 2.5 hours long. It's 3 minutes shy of the runtime of There Will Be Blood. It's 7 minutes longer than Goodfellas. In order to justify that runtime, you better have a really kick-ass story that is going to be engaging and that is going to be riveting and that really justifies its length, and I just don't think it does that. I mean, this movie starts off being super, super campy, intentionally so, and ends up being about a crystalline version of a monkey's paw it's a very silly story, and there's just absolutely no reason it needs to be that long. Let's talk about that monkey's paw thing. Pedro Pascal plays Max Lord, and he chooses to become a wishing stone, so people can like wish upon him, and their dreams will come true. But he will exact a horrible toll for it. And one of the things I actually liked about this movie, I should have mentioned this earlier, is that I like the fact that this plot device basically serves as a metaphor for America, for capitalism, however you want to read into it. Basically, people want things, people are selfish. We as a society have extracted too much from the environment. Patty Jenkins has said in interviews that it's kind of a secret stealth climate change message of like, hey, we want, we take. And really, we need to renounce our desires in order to save society. Or as America, we need to pay back those who we've exacted things, like taken things from, in order for society to really function, in order to get our humanity back. However you want to read it. And I actually think like the fundamental metaphor is effective, and the way it's portrayed is kind of interesting. The problem, I think, with this plot mechanic, as several people have already pointed out online, is that like it basically presumes everyone is selfish, right? And you see this throughout the film. Everyone's like wishing on things, and no one is wishing selfless things. Or if they're wishing selfless things, it's like, I wish our country had missiles, you know? It's not like, I wish for world peace. I wish for the end of world hunger, you know? It's like, I want to be king. Give me weapons. I want $1 million. And it's just an extremely kind of bleak and condescending view on society. And also, the ending of the film is like, hey, renounce all your wishes and let's go back to the way things were in 1984, because that was great for everyone. You know, like 1984 was a time of great prosperity for a few and great turmoil and difficulty for a lot of people. And so the idea that like, hey, you're all selfish, make your wishes go away, let's go back to the way things were. That's the only way that we can possibly be. That's the only thing we can possibly hope for, because that's the truth, as the movie is trying to say. Kind of a disappointing message. Speaking of disappointing messages, I think the film uses iconography and ideas that it just doesn't know what to do with, that it just doesn't understand the implications of. There's a scene when Max Lord goes to Egypt and he meets this emir who has like gotten rich off of oil, and he asks like what that guy's wish is, and that guy's wish is to like expel the invaders. And it's just, there's all these horribly like 80s-esque tropes of what we think people from non-white races are throughout the film. And, you know, people are saying, well, the movie takes place in the 80s. Yes, but it wasn't made in the 80s. And we've tried to leave a bunch of those stereotypes behind because they were damaging and often not true and hurtful. And it's just really disappointing that even though this movie is cast like a movie that was released in 2020, it has the social and geopolitics of a movie that was released in the 1980s. And I just think when you introduce ideas like, you know, a Mayan named Frank Patel and a wall in the Middle East that is expelling invaders and preventing people from getting water and things like that, like the movie just doesn't know what to do with those things. And as a result, it just feels like a child that's wandered into a machine shop that's like picking up like a buzzsaw and a belt sander, and it's like, you know, waving them around, and it has no idea what it's doing. Like, these are weighty, important things that this movie is brandishing. And the fact that Gal Gadot is herself an Israeli who was formerly a member of the IDF, it just is kind of not a great look, and I wish they'd put a little bit more thought into it, especially because a lot of these plot lines could have been completely excised from this movie, which, by the way, did I mention it's 2.5 hours long. There's a lot of random one-off things that I'm disappointed by in this film. For instance, the action I don't think is very good. I think that compared to Wonder Woman 1, which I think had some really great action with some iconic sequences, in this one, the action is either intentionally campy or it feels really CG heavy, really cheesy, really like Diana is not even in the same kind of like plane of existence as some of the people that she's fighting against. A lot of it has to do with like the way the lasso is used, and I think it's meant to be like light and airy and so on, but it's just like it didn't quite work for me, unfortunately. The appearance of Cheetah at the end of the film, played by Kristen Wiig's character, largely takes place at night. I just think The character design didn't work for me. It just looked kind of silly and goofy rather than scary, and I don't think that was what was intended. And also, like, things that were theoretically set up earlier in the film, like Diana's armor, like the special armor that she has, is just completely wasted. It's such a like lack of payoff for really powerful concepts that were introduced well. It's just like, oh, that's going to pay off at the end. Nope. It's just like, oh, the cheetah damages it, and it's kind of, she's done with it. This is a movie that uses the blue beam in sky cliche, but does it underground with Pedro Pascal standing in it. It just is a movie that has a lot of ideas stuffed into it. None of them develop particularly well. But the biggest crime the movie commits is that Diana Prince is basically a side character in her own film, right? I mean, the movie spends so much time on Kristen Wiig's character and Pedro Pascal's character and Chris Pine's character, and it feels like Diana's just like going from place to place and doing, you know, what she's supposed to do, and like doesn't have that much agency, doesn't really dictate a lot of the events of the plot, and that is just a huge bummer. So overall, I think the movie was a pretty big disappointment for me. It wasn't a complete disaster, but it's not great. I think its clumsy use of ideas in politics, the way it wastes its characters, the way the action is not super great, its runtime, the messaging of the film, none of it comes together in a way that I found particularly satisfying. But curious to hear what you thought about this film. Feel free to let me know what you thought of Wonder Woman 1984. Leave a comment below. Before we wrap up, I want to give a big shout out to all of my patrons at patreon.com/Dave Chen. They are supporting me and helping me to make YouTube videos as well as my podcast, Culturally Relevant. If you enjoyed videos like this, go to patreon.com/Dave Chen and consider giving me some of your support. Thanks so much for watching this video. I know it's not quite as polished as my usual videos, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. And if you did, hit like or subscribe, make sure you hit that bell icon, and we'll see you in the next one.